Here we are then, part 10 of the Morris ambulance conversion project, and as you can see the workshop is in an absolute dire state. I've just been throwing everything at the ambulance and there's stuff everywhere. I'm tripping over everything and I can't find anything because it's all on my welding bench or on the chassis. Stuff absolutely everywhere, but we press on. So after some repairs to the chassis, we've got some fiddling about to do. Now what we're doing here is I'm using the Morris fuel tank, and that's got 6mm outlets, and the piping on the inlet for the fuel pump on the Nissan is 8mm. So what I'm doing is I'm machining up a bit of an adapter out of a bit of aluminium, just potentially as a temporary fix, just see if we can get this thing running. Next was time to have a look at the air filter. This used to go behind the cab on the Nissan, and it's a great big plastic thing. What we need is that sensor there, so I'm trying to reconfigure these hoses because they're all one size one end and a different size the other end, so it's quite confusing, but just trying to reconfigure it so that we can get it off from the turbo to somewhere we can actually get at, just to give it a test run with a view to look where we can mount an air filter that isn't taking air out of the cab. Yeah, simple. It's a case of putting that pen in there.
Know where that goes.
So with that done, it was time to address the big elephant in the room, which is the wiring, which we carefully took out many months ago when we first started this project. Since then I've been away, so it's time to try and plug it all in, and hopefully things will go about in the right place, because we don't really want to be extending this too much. It could get quite complicated very quickly, so start offering it up. Ben set away quite nimbly plugging everything in. He seems to remember where most of it went, which was helpful. Even for quite a simple vehicle, there seems to be quite a lot of wiring. So plug and play, we're hoping, fingers crossed.
Now I'll just plug it in, it's practically an EV. Done.
So that's the big plug that joined the cab to the chassis on the Nissan, which made our lives a lot easier when we're taking it apart. But it would transpire after doing some testing that I didn't quite plug that in well enough, because when we turned the key on, we got some lights on the dash, not all of them, and it wouldn't throw the starter motor, which had me very worried, because electronics are really not my thing. Obviously I want this thing to drive as reliably and economically as possible, so I went for the modern running gear route, but yeah, if it goes wrong, I'm not really your man. Anyway, I went and looked in the manual and it said to do it yourself, which I've clearly taken far too literally. And we fiddled around with some plugs. Toby came with his meter and his computer, and we remembered that putting some of the oil in it might help. So got some 65 pounds worth of oil. Have you got 1960s Morris in your machine?
Computer says no. What year is this?
67. 1967.
What year's the Nissan?
Apparently that wasn't a very helpful answer. Anyway, we got everything plugged in. The computer didn't want to know, so we went for the old-fashioned multimeter method, and we got it to cough.
Boys. Yeah.
Well, that's a relief.
That is a relief.
Time to give it some of the expensive juice. I didn't give it quite enough initially, so we gave it some more, and a bit of priming on the fuel pump. We got it a run.
Oh, this is feeling fruity now.
Now this is a big relief. We've got it running. As I said before, if it hadn't wanted to run,
Return's quite good though.
we'd had some major problems. You can't exactly phone up your local auto electrician and say, I've stuck Nissan cabs to running gear in a 1960s ambulance, can you make it work please, because they just won't want to know. So our due diligence, labelling everything very carefully, clearly paid off, and I can't take all the credit. And a lot of help from Adam, Ben and Toby with this, all with varying expertise in motor and general engineering work, so as a combined team we've managed to suss it. But one thing we didn't rely on was the injector link hoses started to leak, so that put pay to that. So time for a cup of tea on the all the seats that I've been trying to fit, and then we decided it was high time that we did the timing on our classic car collection, as Ben's got a rather nifty timing light that you can dial in. And with that done, Toby's MG decided to overheat, so cool that down and move on to doing the timing on the Morris.
Lots of problems. Yeah.
So the prop shaft isn't long enough, so I cut the end off so I can put that in the end of the gearbox and very accurately measure flange to flange. So I took that off down to Leicester to have a new one made in the Morris. Off we go, and then I decided to go and call at Corby Hose and Hydraulic and have some of the hoses made to couple up the power steering, because again the steering box is in a different place. So they made a lovely job of making me some hoses and a clutch flexi hose as well. And then Toby gave me a hand making some of the pipes, and that's what we're doing right now, and we'll see more next Friday if you tune in. Thank you.